You say yes again, though your whole body desperately wants to say no. Have you ever wondered why saying no can sometimes feel surprisingly difficult? Ayan wants to tell you about Leo, a fictional character illustrating one possibility. Leo was an easy child, quiet, cooperative, and rarely causing much trouble. When Leo helped, smiled, or agreed, his mother often seemed especially pleased. When Leo disagreed, the atmosphere at home sometimes felt noticeably colder afterward. Over time, Leo began noticing which behaviors seemed to receive warmer responses. Being agreeable felt easier, while disagreement sometimes created uncomfortable uncertainty for him. So Leo practiced smiling, helping, apologizing, and keeping disagreements mostly to himself. Nobody explicitly taught Leo this pattern, he gradually developed it through experience. Children can become highly attentive to emotional signals within their surrounding environments. Changes in someone's expression, voice, or behavior can influence how situations feel. Leo became especially attentive to other people's moods and possible disappointment. Sometimes he noticed someone's expression changing before anyone said a single word. Other times, a quiet sigh was enough to make Leo reconsider himself. He started adjusting his behavior according to what seemed easiest for everyone else. Being agreeable became one way Leo tried to maintain harmony around himself. This doesn't mean every people pleaser develops this way, however. Personality, relationships, culture, learning, and many other experiences can influence behavior. For Leo, being useful and agreeable gradually became important parts of his identity. And on the surface, those qualities seemed to work remarkably well. Teachers appreciated him, friends relied on him, and family considered him dependable. Adults frequently described Leo as mature, considerate, responsible, and remarkably easygoing. Hearing those compliments made being helpful feel increasingly important to who he was. But Leo increasingly struggled to notice what he actually wanted for himself. Stay with Ayan here because this is where Leo's pattern becomes important. As Leo grew older, similar habits appeared within many of his relationships. At work, he frequently accepted additional deadlines, favors, and responsibilities. His calendar filled with commitments while his personal time gradually disappeared. When coworkers needed help, Leo often volunteered before considering his own workload. When friends changed plans, Leo usually rearranged his schedule without saying much. He even apologized sometimes when another person's inconvenience wasn't actually his responsibility. Friends consider Leo generous and dependable, someone willing to help when needed. But constantly accommodating others sometimes left Leo feeling emotionally and physically drained. Some evenings, Leo finally reached home with almost nothing left for himself. Yet another request could arrive, and Leo would still consider saying yes. Saying no could create anxiety, even when the request itself seemed relatively small. Sometimes Leo noticed tightness in his chest while considering how to respond. He couldn't always explain why an ordinary request created so much discomfort. Sometimes his mind immediately imagined how another person might become disappointed. That imagined reaction could feel more important than Leo's own exhaustion or preference. Some trauma informed discussions use the term fawning for certain appeasing behaviors. The term generally describes attempts to reduce perceived conflict through appeasement or compliance. It isn't a diagnosis, and people pleasing can have many different explanations. For some people, earlier relationship experiences may contribute to these behavioral patterns. For others, temperament, social expectations, habits, or different experiences may matter more. Leo had gradually become especially sensitive to signs someone might feel disappointed. Saying yes often reduced his immediate discomfort and made interactions feel easier. That sense of relief could help keep the familiar response repeating over time. Saying no, meanwhile, sometimes brought expectations of disagreement or possible rejection. These reactions weren't proof of trauma or any particular psychological condition. They were simply patterns Leo had developed and continued carrying into adulthood. Recognizing a pattern can sometimes create more room to respond differently. Leo began wondering whether being helpful always required ignoring his own preferences. He also noticed something else. Resentment sometimes appeared after unwanted commitments. He wasn't necessarily angry with others, sometimes he was frustrated with himself. He had agreed before giving himself enough time to consider the request. That realization eventually led to one surprisingly important evening. A friend asked Leo for another last-minute favor after an exhausting week. Leo felt his familiar discomfort and almost immediately wanted to say yes. The familiar answer seemed ready before Leo had considered what he needed. But instead of answering automatically, he gave himself several seconds to think. Those few seconds felt strangely uncomfortable because Leo wasn't accustomed to waiting. Then Leo finally said, "Sorry, I can't tonight." He worried his friend might become disappointed or angry with him. For several uncomfortable seconds, Leo wondered whether he should reverse his answer. Instead, his friend replied, "Okay, no worries, thanks for telling me." Their friendship continued normally, despite Leo having declined the request. That ordinary interaction gave Leo something new to think about. Maybe disagreement didn't always lead to rejection or damaged relationships. Maybe some of his automatic responses were habits rather than fixed personality traits. And if they were habits, perhaps Leo could experiment with responding differently. That didn't mean every relationship would react positively to every boundary. People can disagree, feel disappointed, or respond differently for countless reasons. But Leo realized another person's disappointment didn't automatically make his boundary wrong. So he began experimenting with small moments of respectful honesty. Sometimes he declined invitations. Other times he asked for more time before answering. Instead of immediately saying yes, Leo occasionally said, "Let me check first." That simple sentence gave him space to consider his own needs too. Gradually, Leo became more comfortable considering his needs alongside everyone else's. The process wasn't perfect, and old habits didn't simply disappear overnight. Leo still occasionally agreed to things he later wished he had declined. Sometimes he noticed only afterward that he had fallen into the familiar pattern. Instead of treating those moments as failures, Leo tried becoming curious about them. What had made saying no difficult, and what had he actually wanted? Gradually, he became better at noticing the impulse before automatically responding. That small pause gave Leo something he previously overlooked, another possible choice. If parts of Leo's fictional story feel familiar, you aren't being diagnosed. People-pleasing can occur for many reasons and looks different between individuals. Your own experiences may be completely different from Leo's fictional example. But noticing when you automatically agree can still provide useful information. Boundaries can sometimes create discomfort, disagreement, or conflict within real relationships. Healthy relationships also commonly involve communication, compromise, and respect for individual limits. Someone struggling with a boundary automatically isn't uncaring, manipulative, or unhealthy. Context and patterns of behavior matter more than one isolated reaction. You can experiment by noticing your immediate reaction before automatically answering someone. Give yourself permission to think before providing the answer they might prefer. Ask yourself one quiet question: what do I actually want to say? So when your instinct immediately says yes, consider giving yourself one pause. Listen to your own preference, consider the situation, and then consciously choose.